What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video. Where today we're going to talk about new defensive coordinator Lou ANARUMO getting hired by the Colts. We finally found our guy. Wasn't who I thought it was going to be. It was a little sooner than I thought it'd be as well. But nonetheless, the Colts are here. We have found our new defensive coordinator. And as I look around there, it just seems like there's a lot of differing opinions. I was curious, hey, why didn't we get Dennis Allen? And as I sat here and looking through things, I ended up seeing that Ben Johnson is actually going to Chicago to be the head coach, and leaving Detroit. And it seems like he's trying to get an all-star group of coaches around him. And it looks like Ben Johnson could have Dennis Allen on his list of guys, and that's where I think Dennis Allen probably pretty set on going there. I think he was probably waiting to see if Ben Johnson would go there and them getting their head coach figured out. I think Dennis Allen going there is something that just seems likely. I think the way these dominoes fall, right? You get, ANARUMO coming here, Ben Johnson going there. Boom, Dennis Allen, probably going to be in Chicago as a defensive coordinator if I had to guess. But we get Lou ANARUMO, and I think right away when you just think of pretty much any defense coordinator, I was having this conversation with somebody earlier. I started trying to think of another defensive coordinator in the league that I can just picture off the top of my head. Hey, who else is like big on, hey, we're doing the rotation. It's going to be the rotation on defensive line. Right. Like instead of playing best 11, like every other defensive coordinator does, like who else does what Gus Bradley does and like hyper focuses on rotation, right? All these guys playing half the snaps. And I just don't think that's fair to the best players on the team, the players that work the hardest, your most talented players. It's not fair to them in the way that you have Latu playing 51% of the snaps, getting the most pressures on the team. But he's never really able to get into a rhythm as a pass rusher, right? His rookie year, he never got to figure out what it's really like to play a lot of snaps during a game and get into a rhythm and playing that chess match with the tackle that he's going up against. And that's something that he's going to be able to do in Lou Anarumo's defense. He's also going to be put in one-on-one situations. Of course, when you think about the Colts, you have DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart on that defensive line. That's going to help have Latu having one-on-ones. Obviously, people are going to want to chip Latu, but if they do that, right, that's where a guy like Kenny Moore, who has blitzed in the past, obviously Gus Bradley didn't blitz a whole lot, but Kenny Moore, when he blitzes, generally effective. He's good at disguising it. And in Lou Anarumo's defense, you think back to when Lou Anarumo had Mike Hilton in the slot, and what he was able to do with him. And Mike Hilton, as good as Mike Hilton has been in his career, maybe some of his best years with Lou Anarumo, and because of the things that the secondary is going to be asked to do, need to be aggressive. The secondary is going to have to cover space, but also that slot position, man. Lou Anarumo is not going to be shy about sending Kenny at the quarterback with as fast as he is coming off the edge. Right, you wanna chip Latu, then you're gonna have to play it in a way where you don't have, like, the offenses are gonna have to be where Kenny can't be on Latu's side. If you want to chip Latu, Kenny can't be over there, or else Kenny gonna be sent. If you know the tight end's gonna chip him, boom, Kenny's just running right past the tight end, straight to the quarterback, right? And if the running back wants to step up on Kenny, that leaves the other side, Kwity Paye and Grover Stewart or DeForest Buckner, however they have the defensive line set. Boom, we have coming off the other side, running back's not going to be able to block. Like, it's just the different advantages that come with Lou Anarumo and what he's going to deploy on defense. Now, people will cite his defensive stats, and that's one thing I point to when you look at the different the different candidates that we had, and just looking at the numbers. And I just thought that overall, Lou Anarumo was like the third candidate that I wanted. It was Dennis Allen, Wink Martindale, and then Lou Anarumo. But by all means, all three of those guys, good with any of them. So getting Lou Anarumo, I think it's going to bring stability. I think he's somebody that's going to hold people accountable in terms of effort on the field. I think that's something that through the years has been something that Lou Anarumo has really been on top of, just like Matt Eberflus was, right? The effort on the field. And that's one thing that's going to have to be better with the unit that we have, right? The effort on the field sometimes just wasn't what it needed to be. But I also think that DeForest Buckner had a good point where he had mentioned, it was the worst year defensively since he's been here, but that there were different points where you could see the defense be great, where the defense was incredible. Like, and we've talked about that here on this channel. Like there were just different points where the Colts defense was dominating, and then for a quarter, offensively and defensively, you would just forget how to play football, and we end up losing the game because of it. And it's just things like that. Like again, stability, consistency. I think doing another thing about Lou Anarumo, right? He's going to game plan game to game, right? Gus Bradley had his system, and they were going to run it. They were going to run the same plays, and they were just going to run what they run and make it work for what they're trying to do, and just try to hope you call the right coverages. Whereas in Lou Anarumo's defense, he's going to game plan around the specific team, and hey, this is what we're going to do this week. That's what's good about having a guy that runs multiple coverages. He can, in a game, he can, hey, this is what we're going to do to start out. If they figure this out, or if they react this way, then we can switch this. Like the way he's going to game plan it to be able to win in different ways, to be able to attack in different ways. That is the benefit of getting a guy like Lou Anarumo, right? The three guys that I mentioned, when you think about all three of them, those guys, they're all willing to be aggressive, and especially Wink Martindale, one of the most aggressive defensive coordinators of all time, maybe the most aggressive coordinator of all time. But nonetheless, Lou Anarumo, and it's not that Lou Anarumo is going to come in and be ultra aggressive, but he will be aggressive in terms of his play calling, right? We're not going to send blitzes 50% of the time. But we did see, through the examples of him blitzing through the season. Beginning of the season, didn't blitz very much. That big middle part of the season, for about half the schedule or so, they blitzed a lot as a team. And then at the back part, once that defense really started to come together for Lou Anarumo there in Cincinnati at the end of the year, and they were actually playing better, I think at that point they started blitzing less. Once all the new pieces in that defense started to fit into that defense, Lou Anarumo, with what he has to work with, was able to figure it out by the end of the season. Say, hey, this is how we tighten things up. Gave the Bengals a shot. Obviously, before that, defense was a big factor in the Bengals not making the playoffs. But again, that is largely due to the talent that he had, and that's for anybody, any head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, even special teams coordinator. Like, you don't get these great coaches, the right talent, like it's going to be hard for any of them. And Lou Anarumo, really getting scapegoated. I think his defenses have never been like top tier dominating, but he's shown that in the past when he has a great defense and has some pieces on the defenses in order to be good, and he can, that defense can help them win, right? When you think about going back to the AFC Championship game, right? And shout out to Stephen Holder, put out an article. That's where I got this little tidbit, and it was a good little piece of information to throw in here. But think about the Super Bowl run. That AFC Championship game, they were able to come up big on defense, stop Patrick Mahomes and the high-powered Chiefs offense, right? That was back when they still had Tyreek Hill, right? It was those teams with Travis Kelce a couple years younger, like, and here you have Joe Burrow coming in here, and that defense really helping the Bengals be able to get to the Super Bowl, where in the Super Bowl against the high-powered Rams team, they end up giving up 23 points, which would have been enough to win if Aaron Donald wasn't such a freak. If Aaron Donald wasn't such a freak, Joe Burrow gets that pass off, I believe it was Jamar Chase, wide open down the sideline. Might have been T. Higgins, one of those guys wide open down the sideline. It would have been a touchdown, and the Bengals end up winning, holding the Rams to 23 points, right? And so I just think there, Lou Anarumo's not perfect. I'm not saying we came out here um, and honestly, saying we didn't make the best hire, right? I think we can all agree that Dennis Allen may have been, but in terms of like saying who's going to be the best hire in a way that's relative, when you think about it matters who we put on the team. So the front office and them doing their job, rearranging the defense, however Lou Anarumo needs to, right? And then we're gonna have to do right by him from that aspect. But at the same time, Lou Anarumo, I think, has proven that he can make do and do better with less. Like he can make more with less, and make more happen with less. And I think he'll be able to figure it out. At the beginning of the season, depending on what pieces we're able to bring in and what we're able to change, right? Going to need a free safety that can cover a lot of space. Really number two corner. I'd say is probably going to be something that's going to be hot competition. Get somebody in here that can move, and somebody that can be physical, but somebody that also has some speed to cover on the outside and to be able to stay with some of these top flight wide receivers on the outside. There are just different changes, specifically in the secondary, that are going to need to be made. And of course, we'll see Latu play more. That's just the honest assumption, is that Latu is going to be playing more like 85% or more of the snaps, because that's just kind of what good defenses do, right? Put him in that Trey Hendrickson role, right? Trey Hendrickson led the NFL in sacks this year. For everything you want to say about the Bengals defense this year, Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks, a dog on the defensive line in this Lou Anarumo system, right? Getting a guy in enough one-on-one situations like Trey Henderson to be disruptive enough to lead the league in sacks. That can be Latu in his second season. There's a lot to be optimistic about. Obviously, it's a wait and see game, right? What's the personnel going to be like? What's it really going to be like with Lou Anarumo here? How's the defense going to change? And what are we going to see in 2025? So many questions about the future, but definitely some optimism going into 2025, making a good hire. I think Colts fans lucky to have Lou Anarumo, honestly, coming in again. I think his experience over the years, his experience in the secondary and as a secondaries coach in the past, I think he's a guy that's going to bring some stability with his age, his wisdom, his competitiveness, his attitude. I just think this is a good hire for the Colts, and hopefully this upcoming season we see a defense that was dominant at times. Hopefully we can see him go in and really find a way to be dominant next year when we talk about implementing a new defense and having a new style of attack from week to week. I think it's going to be really, really good for us, and a great defense is going to help a good offense. So hopefully we can just figure it out. A lot of personnel changes that are going to have to be made offensively, defensively. There are a lot of things, and it's time to start getting those into those conversations. That's exactly what we're going to do tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you continue to get notified anytime we drop any content on this channel. Of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.